the water was already starting to lap over the bridge on Bridge Street. It just spread throughout the downtown and encompassed it. An interesting thing about this storm was it happened first thing in the morning, and not many disasters can you just stand there and watch it happen and there's nothing you can do and just broad daylight. It was an experience to watch all that unfold right in front of us and not really knowing what you could do. There wasn't much you could do, just stand and watch it. Yeah, it's just a wild experience.
Hurricane Helene changed everything for Hot Springs. Streets, homes, and even memories were just washed away. But what survived wasn't just debris, it was stories. And those stories are now bound up in a book that proves that resilience is stronger than any flood. If you haven't already, take a second to subscribe to our channel. It really helps support our channel and ensures that more people hear stories like this one on WNC Heartbeat. So I'd like to introduce my co-host Anna first. Anna, take it away.
Thanks, Allie. Um, Welcome back to WNC Heartbeat. Today's episode is really close to home and close to the 1-year mark since Hurricane Helene came through this area. Out of the mud, the silence, and the long road of recovery came something truly remarkable, a community published book called Through Our Eyes, a community photographic memory of Hurricane Helene. It's more than a collection of pictures. It's a living record of how neighbors became lifelines, how memories became markers of resilience, and how one small town is teaching us what it truly means to rebuild. To walk us through the story behind the book and the work of Rebuild Hot Springs, we're joined today by Kevin Reese. Welcome, Kevin, a community organizer and one of the driving forces behind preserving these stories for generations to come. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, Anna, just before we launch into Kevin and his work with Rebuild Hot Springs, just maybe we can kind of go through, because you and I went through the hurricane as well. We were living in Hot Springs. We still are, Hot Springs, North Carolina. And I know for me, it was, we certainly did not, we had a very different experience than a place like Asheville. Asheville got hit really hard and they were out for months. Um, Much higher population, just a different situation. We're a very, very small, remote township. Hot Springs is a small town. All our little towns all over Western North Carolina, we really had to lean on each other and neighbors, I think, was like the big thing that I took away from all of it is that my family, we were fleeing our rental when the floodwaters started to rise from our creek. Now, this wasn't French Broad flooding. This was a creek flooding. So, we weren't worried that our house was going to get washed away. We just didn't know what the roads were going to be like. We didn't know how high up the water would get. We didn't know what would happen. It was dark. It was a little scary. We had animals. And one thing that stands out for me is that there were people driving as the waters were rising, driving in their trucks, stopping every house or two, being like, "Do you guys need help? We're here to help. We're driving around helping others." They abandoned their house to go help others. We fled to one of our properties that we had just acquired. Very, very lucky. We acquired this farmhouse. We're like, I think the farmhouse is higher up, and we got stopped by a tree that had fallen over, and people were out with their chainsaws. And I think, Anna, you had a very similar experience. You're way up on Doggett. You and all your neighbors were out chainsawing down trees to help people pass.
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge your experience, Allie, was, even though we had a different experience than Asheville proper, we had a very all-encompassing experience. I had never been through a national disaster before. And I didn't have any understanding. I remember watching news footage of things like Hurricane Katrina or the wildfires in California and things like that. And I didn't really grasp it, but going through this experience was um, just an incredible experience. It was extraordinary. Um, we were blocked from driving. We had mudslides and trees down, and I think one of the more impactful moments we had was um, driving into town a couple days later because we were like, communication's out. What's happening? We're trying to figure out what's happening, and hearing nothing but sirens. And that just gives me chills. The infrastructure impact on Asheville was severe, and it rippled out through all the areas in Western North Carolina, even if they weren't directly impacted by the water or not. I remember lying awake at 4 a.m. going, what's going to happen? You know, and I'm struck by how people's experiences were very much affected by location and chance. You know, some people had mudslides, some people didn't. Some people had their houses fall apart or burn down or whatever, and some people didn't. But everyone came out. Everyone came outside and said, what happened? We met neighbors, our neighbors down at Rarebird Farm. We met our neighbors walking up the road trying to figure out what was going on. And so the really impactful part, I think, that all sits with us a year later is how much we didn't understand, how much we understand now, and how grateful we are for our neighbors, how grateful we are for our communities. It really kept us together in more ways than one. And we're so much stronger today because of it. And we've rebuilt. And it's been an extraordinary experience. I think it's the only word that I can put in there.
So Kevin, and I know Anna, you probably have we want to launch some questions at you, if that's all right, Kevin. Yeah.
So take us back to the day of Hurricane Helene, Kevin. What do you remember most vividly?
I'll start a day before. So on Thursday, September 26th, word was getting around that this was going to be a big one. It had rained already for 3 days. The creeks, the river was about at capacity. I live on River Road in Hot Springs, and on Thursday morning at around 8 a.m., I heard come across the fire scanner that parts of River Road was already washed out. So my sister, so Hot Springs is a tiny little town along the Appalachian Trail in the French Broad River. It's bisected in half by the French Broad River. I live on the River Road side. My sister lives on the other side. And I called my sister and I was like, hey sis, I'm gonna come crash on your couch for a night or two. You know, that's what I was thinking. She's like, yeah, sure. So I grabbed my bag, went over there. Turned out to be 11 days before I could get home. It was quite the experience. That Thursday, like I said, word was traveling through town that this was going to be a big one. And some folks had started gathering some sandbags to just try to, protect our main street along the Spring Creek there on Bridge Street. Historically, if we get a high water event, it might be a few inches to a foot of water in downtown. So we're like, okay, we got some sandbags. There was a group of about 50 people that went up to the DOT shed, the Department of Transportation, which is about a mile outside of town. And we're just filling sandbags, putting them in trucks, driving them down the main street. And there was another crew there that were just packing storefronts. Everyone went home thinking, okay, we did what we could do. The next morning, I myself got down to town about 7:30 that morning, and the water was already starting to lap over the bridge on Bridge Street. And from there up until about noon, maybe even a little later, it all kind of blurs together. It just spread throughout the downtown and encompassed it. And there's an interesting thing about this storm was it happened first thing in the morning, and not many disasters can you just stand there and watch it happen and there's nothing you can do, and just broad daylight. And so the whole community was just along Bridge Street just watching. And at one point there were 5 people that were staying in the upstairs of the Iron Horse Station, which is a restaurant right in downtown. They were going to try to ride out the storm there. they had to have swift water rescue. The Walnut Fire Department came and had to save them. And it was an experience to watch all that unfold right in front of us, and not really knowing what you could do. There wasn't much you could do, just stand and watch it.
Yeah.
Also, an interesting thing that, especially while researching this book, was talking to some of the folks that were on the other side where I live, River Road. They were blocked for 3 days completely, to where they couldn't get in or out. No one could even come help them. They were just completely, all right, we're here, and they took care of each other in such incredible ways. And yeah, it's just a wild experience.
So what, from that entire experience, what led you to then form Rebuild Hot Springs? Where did that start?
It really just started on out of necessity, but also just a continuation of what was already happening on the ground. Um, the day of the flood, Friday, September 27th, after things started calming down a little bit and the water started receding, just word spread throughout town by word of mouth, because at that point, there was no cell phone communications. We were starting to get a ham radio network set up, which came very, very useful during all that. But word was spreading. Okay, we're meeting at Sarah Joe's station. It's a gas station on the corner. It was far enough away that it wasn't affected by the water, to where, okay, 11 a.m. tomorrow, let's all meet. And I would say 50 people showed up to that meeting, or just, how can we help? What can we do? And it started from there. And one thing led to another. We had daily meetings for months, at 11 a.m. That then turned into weekly, which are still happening to this day, a year later. And a lot of the folks throughout that were realizing that people outside of Hot Springs were wanting to help, especially since we've been a tourist town for so long. A lot of folks know of Hot Springs and that weren't directly affected. So they're like, how can we help? And they send a lot of donations into town. And it was being gathered by the Friends of the Hot Springs Library, but they weren't set up to distribute that. So we formed our 501c3 in order to take on that role of managing that money and distributing it to folks that needed it.
So compare those early goals that you guys had when you were meeting every day at 11. There was still all the devastation and destruction. How has that evolved to today, where we're like pretty much at the anniversary or very close to it?
So the early days was, how do we get food? How do we get water? How do we stay clean? How do we wash our hands? Those things. Today, it's evolved into major projects, to where the town of Hot Springs just received a $10 million grant to work on the infrastructure. Our our sewer system and water system was decimated by this, and they've been able to patchwork it together a little at a time, but now we can really rebuild it the way it needs to be built. And that's been kind of the theme, is, for better or for worse, not many people get the chance to start over. And so we're having that chance, and we're trying to make smart decisions to do it better this time. So yeah, I guess just the scope of things, it's still the same mentality of like, okay, let's take care of this, let's fix it. And we still have a long way to go in a lot of regards. But yeah, it went from, now we're managing major projects.
And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you, Kevin, and the whole organization for the immensity of that task. That's what this podcast is all about, is finding folks who are just dedicating their life's work to doing a very important work, and rebuilding your town is a huge task, and we just want to acknowledge you for that.
We have an incredible group of people here in town. Rebuild, it's a small team. We've been able to do a lot, but there's so many people that have done incredible things. Our Mayor Abby, like she's on her second term. Her first term was COVID, second term this. Yeah.
Wow.
But she's done an incredible job, and the Board of Aldermen, like everybody, has stepped into roles that were expected of them beforehand, but they stepped up.
Some of our finest moments sometimes come in places and times we don't expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where did the idea of Through Our Eyes come from?
Which, for any of you who don't have context, that is the photo book and has the stories of the people of Hot Springs that have submitted all of this, right?
I mean, it really, early on, I made the remark, I mean, like when we were in the thick of it on the ground in the first few days, I was just noticing all these powerful stories happening and just funny scenarios, sad scenarios, just all kinds of just life thrown at you really quick and raw. I made a joke to someone. I was like, yeah, someone needs to write a book about this, but I never dreamed that I would have the opportunity to be involved in the project. It really came about, I was talking to Mitchell, who is the founder of Million Memory Project, which is the publisher of this book. And I've been working with him with the Appalachian Memory Project. And we were just talking about stories, and I kept telling him like small little bits and pieces of the stories that I knew. And he was like, wow, this is a story that needs to be told. And I was able to just get on the ground and have a campaign of getting as many folks as possible to share their story, their images, their perspectives. And it was really a collective effort of the town. We ended up with 48 people were involved, and yeah, it was incredible.
What was the process like collecting all of those photos and stories from the residents?
So it was kind of two. I mean, even more than two. There was a lot of ways that we went about it. The first one was we did a 3-week campaign of just we had submissions online that people could submit their photos, and we had a little bit of traction with that. But I also knew that a lot of folks personally, it being such a small town, I know everybody. We all know each other. We're one big dysfunctional family, and so there were folks that I knew had great stories, had great images. So I would just go out and be like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And luckily everybody said yes. And we were also able to collect. I went out and interviewed a few folks that I knew had very important roles in this. Also collect stories from the past that are relevant to this. In particular, one was an interview with Keith Gentry. He's the owner of Gentry Hardware. And Hot Springs experienced another dramatic flood in 1977. And the interview was in 2019, maybe 2018, somewhere around there, done by the StoryCorps with the Hot Springs Library. And Keith was talking a lot about the flood in 1977 and how his parents went through this process of just having their livelihood destroyed and having to rebuild. And the parallels were really crazy to compare to what we just experienced last year. And another aspect was I just happened to think at that first community meeting at Sarah Joe's to put my phone on the gas pump and just record the meeting. Never knew what we would ever use it for, but I referenced that a lot in the book of just going back to those moments where we didn't really know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
At that time, the roads were closed. There was no way in or out. It was just us. So that pulling from that, and then just being able to witness it over the past year of where we started and where we are today, just that powerful story.
Well, what were some of the, I'd say, like the unexpected challenges that you and your team faced? Maybe it's funding, logistics, emotions, anything to do with, like, what did you was sort of like, wow, that's not what I expected in this whole process.
A good problem we had, but a problem nonetheless, was the sheer amount of donations and people trying to help early on. Once the roads opened up, it became almost overwhelming. So 2570 is one of the only thoroughfares through the Southern Appalachian Mountains in our region. And it was the only way through after I-40 was washed out by the Pigeon River for quite a while. Yeah, months. And we still have effects of that today. Like if something happens there, they all come through here. But us being the first kind of hub from people in particular from Tennessee, because we have a joke that for a minute we became Hot Springs, Tennessee, because we had no way to go into North Carolina. Like our only way was to go 2570 into Tennessee. And those folks showed up and showed up hard. And that was a unique challenge of just seeing how do we manage this? We suddenly had to become a logistics of that, the distribution of that, the organization of that. That was a challenge.
We actually had a very similar problem, right, Anna, at the community center. And it's like, I don't even want to use the word problem because it's like, it was such a blessing.
It's a great problem. Yeah.
Like so many people came through with donations. We literally didn't have places to put everything and the
Yeah.
clothing, and we didn't have enough volunteers to sort it. And it got to the point where we actually would encourage people to go into Asheville to
Mhm.
donate some of this stuff because we were so, like, we literally didn't, our whole entire gym was and backspace, and we're just a small space. So yeah, what do you do? What do you do with all of it? And at the same
Yeah.
time, you don't want to be insensitive or not grateful for everything that people are doing.
I remember helicopters flying in when I was down cooking at the fire department. They put on meals for weeks in Spring Creek, and commend them a lot for that. And we would be there and in the kitchen and suddenly hear the helicopter coming in and the sound, and they would come in and they're like, okay, we have this, and this, and we're like, okay, where can we put it? Because we were in the early days, you're still trying to figure out what people need.
Mhm.
And then as the efforts go on and on, you get more organized, you figure things out. But then there's also like, what do you do with all of it? And that's a significant part of emergency readiness, is knowing what to do with all of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely. Um, what what wisdom would you share with other small towns facing this kind of recovery?
It sounds like, having been in a small town, you had connections that sometimes you don't get in a big city. There is a
Yes.
closeness. At least we felt that way, certainly. The fact that, like, all of you just gathered, and then it's like, well, it's just us, and you look at each other, and next thing you know, you're all together in it. There must be some element of that with small towns where you're there for each other.
Yeah. Be a part of the community. The community will take care of you, and don't try to do it all on your own. Ask for help. People are willing to help you.
The rebuilt hot springs, will it be available to the public?
Yeah, it will just be released by the time this comes out. We're releasing it. We're filming this on Tuesday, and it'll be released this Friday. So, um, yeah, we're really excited to get that out there. We had a bunch of people pre-order it, and we've got those. Either we've already worked it out to hand deliver it. We're such a small place. I know a lot of the folks, but the other folks, they'll be starting to ship next week, and then it'll just be available. You can go to rebuildhotsprings.org/book, and it'll be there, and it'll just be shipped to your door.
We'll make sure we link that in the description. And then talk to me about the ebook as well.
Yeah, the ebook will be available. It's going to be on all the major platforms. If you live in North Carolina, it'll be available for free, thanks to a sponsorship from the libraries of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. It'll be available on NC Live, and also all the archival material. So all the photos, the transcripts, the audio recordings we have are going to be preserved at the University of North Carolina Library. It's through Digital NC. It's the North Carolina Digital Heritage Library is the program, but that's going to be there, for as long as the institution is there.
Besides purchasing the book, is there any other way that people can help support everything that you guys are doing?
Don't forget about us, all of Western North Carolina. It's been a year and we've came a long way, but we still have a long way to go. It was a major licking we all took, and people can donate if they choose to, but another thing is we can still use volunteers and just spreading the word, keeping us in your memory.
And if someone wanted to volunteer, would they go to the Rebuild Hot Springs website?
Yes, there's a form you can fill out there. We have a great volunteer coordinator here in the town of Hot Springs named Sina, and she will figure out who needs what your skills are, and put you to work.
And I want to put a pitch out there for the businesses that have reopened already too. There's a lot of places in Hot Springs that can use your tourism.
Yes, we're open.
Visit
Yeah.
Come visit. The fall is so beautiful here. You know, like
The
there's
trees
so
are
many
turning
things.
red now. They're turning
Yes.
red. Yeah.
And the you know, I don't want to plug any individual business, but there's so many that are back open because they've worked so hard. And come see us, come drive through, come have a meal, have a beer, see some music. There's lots of things going on. And we just would love to have you, no matter where you're from.
Mhm.
Come see us.
And you get to see it in a unique light, you know?
So, Kevin, thank you for sharing this journey with us. We really appreciate your time. And the story of Hot Springs is a reminder that recovery isn't just about bricks and boards and bridges, but it's about people and memory and resilience and effort. And we hear that in your words today.
Absolutely. And if any of you out there listening or watching have made it this far in the video, be sure you've subscribed or are following us. Every week, we're hoping to bring you stories like this one, stories of Western North Carolina that would inspire or challenge or connect us. And we're just getting started. We are working on a newsletter and a community space, which where you'll be able to dive deeper into all of this, into the Rebuild Hot Springs book, into new projects, more voices from across the mountains. So the details will be posted here. So I know on YouTube you can turn on notifications. So if you really are gung ho and getting like the most up to date info, be sure to hit that notification bell. And if this episode resonated with you, Kevin, I don't know if you're familiar with Mission Sheds that Ed and Barbie Johnson at Spring Creek.
Yes.
Yes, we
Incredible
interviewed
stuff.
them. If you're watching this, then it will have already been posted. You can click on this video here, which will have an overlay, and you'll be able to watch that interview. It's very, very inspiring and very special. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting these stories and keeping the heartbeat of WNC alive.